This is a special one. We sat down with Ben, an OG Honest FBA member who just last week sold his brand for millions of dollars. Now, some of you watching will recognize Ben from an interview we did on this channel just over a year ago. And since then, he's grown the brand even more, found a suitable buyer, and walked away with stacks of cash. Now, in the interview, we talk about how he found the niche, what caused the insane growth, what he would do if he started again today, and loads of other actionable takeaways that any e-com brand owner can take lessons from. This is the Amazon FBA dream outcome. In just 3 years, $0 to millions of dollars. Let's get into it. Ben, welcome back, mate. Welcome back to the channel.
Thank you.
I'll kick this on the most reacted to post we've ever had inside of Honest FBA's Discord. And what I'm getting at there is the post you made last week announcing that you had exited your brand after 3 years. You managed to sell it. The deal closed last week, and people loved it. I nearly cried. I'll be honest. I did nearly cry when I read it.
Me too.
You and me both. Yeah.
So, welcome back. Well done. First things first. Like, absolutely incredible achievement, and everyone in the community straight away was like, "You got to interview him. We got to find out the juicy details." Yeah, but I guess obvious question. Everyone asks it. How do you feel? How do you feel 1 week out from the deal closing? How's life changed?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I feel amazing. I'll say that, right? I'm not gonna lie. This is a good feeling. But like, how's my life changed? Not substantially, right? Like, you move from that into, like, a transition process of helping someone get up to speed on the business, and that's like full of details and little tasks that you didn't think about. So there's a whole section of learning probably that has to do with doing something right from the start, so that's easily packaged up and can be handed off to someone else. Like, I should have taken a course on that and did not. So
is it kind of like you've had the big exit, euphoria, and now you've got like a little kind of 9 to 5 checklist of jobs you've got to do again? Like, kind of like you've gone back to the start of the brand.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. A bunch of necessary things to do, but aren't necessarily a lot of fun. But yeah, so I guess you could say that it's very similar to where you started.
So then we'll go to people that are brand new. Ben came on the channel about just over a year ago. You came on, didn't you? And you were at a really healthy scale. And I think during that interview, you said, like, my goal is to exit the business. I think we discussed that in a bit of detail. At that point, you were just 2 years in. Now you're just over 3 years in. So I suppose what we can say is, what happened in the last 12 months? I suppose what happened. How did it play out? And from what point did you kind of line up the sale? Like, when did it really kind of start getting real?
So I think I started like just the very beginnings of the process, like in last April. And so it took a while to develop, and probably got serious in Q4, and then of course just closed. And so over that year, I mean, I had basically set out based on those results, and like the last time I was on with you guys, those results were as surprising to me as they were to everyone else, honestly. And I that was like the first taste I'd gotten of, like, oh wow, this could be a lot bigger than it is, so I used that to set the goals, like set the high level revenue targets, based on the seasonality and what I thought we could do over the course of this year, and was able to bring that in, basically right on target. We were able to do about what I thought we would do. There were definitely some hiccups along the way. I think we actually could have done well over where we ended up being if I had managed it differently and things had gone differently. So there's we did really well, but also left a fair bit on the table, probably in a variety of ways.
What kind of revenue, like annualized revenue, were you at by the end?
So last year, so last year ended about 5 million. So
Wow.
got from over the course of those it was about like you say, just slightly over 3 years, soup to nuts, and uh, went from basically nothing to 5 million. So
Not bad.
very, very happy with that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, I bet.
pretty crazy, and like that's a that's a relatively short space, because in your post in Discord you said like in the blink of an eye, and it's 3 years is like a blink of an eye, isn't it? From starting a brand
Yeah.
to having that exit, like that's obviously everybody's dream. Like along the way, or like from the beginning, do you feel like there's any key things that you did from the very start that really helped you get to that point and also have the exit?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one, honestly, I mean, there's ecom is, I think I might have said this last time. This is the most complicated business type I've ever been involved with, right? So there's a lot of little things that have to be done right, and to some extent, you kind of have to do all the things. You have to get like get it 80% right on a lot of little things for it to go right. Um, that said, I think there definitely are some characteristics that made this easier on me. There are some characteristics that, like, one of which I think, one of the biggest factors really was the niche itself. So it's in health and wellness niche. That niche has been trending really hard. That trend continues to this day. It's just like on a rocket ship, basically. And if you if you get in relatively early on something that has a trend like that, then that is going to be one of the biggest levers in your business. Really, it's just so much easier to grow in a rapidly growing market than if something is just steady over time, and you have to battle it out and take share from existing competitors who already have an advantage on you. That's really tough, right? The far easier play that I honestly like, that piece I lucked into. Um, I I did know that people wanted it. I did know that there was a trend there. That is one of the reasons I chose it in the first place. What I didn't know is like how significant that trajectory would become, and like how durable it would be. So those things were somewhat of a surprise to me. I've always been kind of like opportunistic in choosing the things that I work on. I'll see opportunities and say, okay, there's a seam that I should try to go see, and mine that and see if there's anything there. This is one of those, and it just happened to be something that was part of a much bigger trend, and a much more durable trend than I thought. So that was probably the single biggest lever. And then everything else is, there's a lot to learn, I think, from the other pieces. Like, one is, like I positioned the product in a way that I think made sense and resonated with people. Um, and really that was just like kind of a luxury angle. When I first looked at the niche way back when, I looked at it and I said, well, there's there were enough products there. There were competitors there already, but none of them looked good, right? And that's the classic kind of FBA angle, right? Like, there are competitors in there, but none of them are doing a very good job. I can go in there and make something that looks a heck of a lot better. That was basically the idea, but it was like the luxury angle was where I started. The other piece was that it's relatively high ticket, so uh, that's a big factor as well. I think if you're trying, especially now, this probably wasn't true back when I started. You could probably, be fine selling something for 25 or $30. But now I think it's much harder to do that. I think that's the way, like, you know, I see, like, older models, like, so there used to be a huge thing to do drop shipping, and then that ended up being high ticket drop shipping, right? And I think the same thing is happening here, where it's just it's going to be very, very difficult if you have very little margin to play with, just because of the fees involved. So that's not something I really chose either. That was just the nature of the product and that I was selling. I didn't really think about it being, um, like that I had to stay in a certain AOV range or something. That was another kind of piece of luck that I just capitalized on later.
To be fair, you don't know what when you first started on Amazon. I doubt you knew what AOV meant, to be honest. Like, nor did we. It's like, it's easy to connect. Was it Steve Jobs quote? Like, it's easy to connect the dots looking backwards, and you kind of ticked all those.
That's exactly right. Yeah,
you ticked all those boxes, and like picking a niche that's growing like that. Predicting the future is obviously incredibly difficult. If we could all do that, we'd be billionaires now. But like the whole being the fourth biggest seller in your niche could be 100 times bigger than being the number one hamster wheel seller on Amazon. Yeah. Like that's the game's play, right? You're swimming in the right river. I've actually butchered that, but you know what I mean? In the right pond.
Exactly. Yeah.
In the right ocean. But yeah, like that's it. That plays a huge part. And then the other points that you've mentioned there, like this is something that we've definitely come to realize over time. And obviously inside of Honest FBA, we're always harping on about this now. Like, if you're not going to do a consumable subscription-based product, it's got to be a high ticket product, and you tick that. But I know you added some consumables later on as well, which is awesome to kind of add it into the brand. But yeah, that became very evidently clear over the last couple of years, and you were in a perfect spot to do that. But at the start of your journey, was it a very Chinese dominated niche? Were there any Western sellers in there?
There were a couple of appears to me that there, like I know one was US based company, and I think if you looked at the niche broadly, like D2C included, there probably were 2 or 3 that were US based, but the vast majority of what was going on Amazon appeared to be Chinese. That's still true to this day. Actually, even more so now. There's a lot more competitors now than when I started, and especially on Amazon, it's like getting pretty saturated with a lot of Chinese sellers, I would say.
So one of the things that we've been talking a lot about in the community and like in our YouTube videos is kind of like this we call it the new way of doing Amazon, right? Because traditionally we come from this background of FBA where it's just sell your products on Amazon, and there's always this separation between Amazon FBA and then D2C. But you didn't take that approach, right? You took the approach of like just seeing it as e-commerce basically. So can you talk about that journey of how you went from just launching your product, because you only launched on Amazon initially, right? But then over the years you transitioned and you moved into other platforms. So can you just sort of talk about that journey of launching the product on Amazon and then how that evolved over time into these other channels?
Yeah, so I did initially launch on Amazon, and that's because that fit my background. Basically, I used to do like a lot of SEO. I did a lot of paid search. I used to run like a paid search division of a agency, and so I was familiar with bottom of funnel, right? That's what a lot of this. As not all SEO is bottom of funnel, but when you're talking about like buying stuff, Google ads, that's very similar to Amazon ads, and it's very bottom of funnel. And I think Amazon ads are even more so, right? Like that is as bottom of funnel as anything gets. That's why they work so well, and why they're relatively expensive now. But I started on Amazon for that reason, is because it was just easier for me in figuring out the logistics of the business. Like that was the piece that I didn't know much about, was actually, we talked about that at length on the last one. There was a lot of pieces of that I just didn't understand. So, as I filled in the gaps in my knowledge, it was just easier to be on Amazon because I wasn't having to think as hard about the marketing part of it. As I got all that stuff down, then a few things happened. One was I kind of always knew that I wanted to, explore other channels, right? What like probably the first foray into that was just that I wanted to be on Google Shopping, right? Also very bottom of funnel. But in order to be on Google Shopping, you have to have your own product feed, which means you need a Shopify site, or like you need your own website basically to have your own product feed. So that's kind of probably the first thing that I said, okay, I got to solve for that. Therefore, I need a Shopify site. And then later on, when when things were taking off, and I was starting to talk to people about like, okay, well, what if I wanted to exit this business? And when I started having those conversations, I got a lot of different pieces of advice, some of which I think was more accurate than others. But one of them was like, you need some diversification. It can't be completely Amazon dependent. I mean, you can sell a business like that, but it's harder, and people will view that as like a much larger platform dependency risk, which it is. So I at that point I started setting some goals around how can I diversify off of Amazon, in what ways make sense, and I try to probably half a dozen different things. The one that really worked for me in the long run was the one that pretty much works for everybody, which is Shopify plus Meta.
And that was that something in the end, your split at in the past 12 months, for example, what was your revenue split between Amazon, Shopify, I think a bit of TikTok as well, right?
Yeah. So, I had just when I talked to you guys last, I had a TikTok video, had a TikTok affiliate, and had a video that kind of took off. And so that showed the promise of that. Although I will say I don't think I don't think I was ever able to repeat that exactly, or B, able to create enough of a process around that to have regular hits on that front. I think the product and the niche lends itself to that kind of selling, to like the TikTok affiliate model. I just think I never operationally nailed how to make that repeat. And I never hired anybody to do it. So that piece of it, we got a little taste, but not a lot. And then in the last time that we spoke, that year I was wrapping that up, and I had done a lot of sales, but the vast majority of it was Amazon still. And so I went into last year, setting goals around, hey, I would like to get a much higher percentage off of Amazon, like whatever that means. I mean, there's other marketplaces. There's, could do some small selling into physical retailers, and I dabbled in a bunch of different little pieces like that. And but the one that really worked reliably was Shopify with Meta ads going to it, and some there's also affiliate on Shopify was pretty key for me. We do do some of that, and like I say, Google Ads and SEO. That's where I came from, and there's some of that as well. But the whole mix got it to where a very substantial portion of the business was going in that direction by the end of the year, and we're hitting our goals on that front as well. So it's much more diversified, stable kind of setup going forward. So that also worked, and I would strongly encourage folks, like you're saying, the models have kind of been changing recently, and I think that back in the amazing selling machine days, when that was all the rage, that was something where you could just go in and make a little Amazon business, and that could be the whole pie, and that was fine. I think that's kind of gone. I think you should probably it makes a lot more sense to think about Amazon as just being a sales channel. And I think that one of the things that you see almost immediately is that if you do run good ads on Meta, if you do have some success with TikTok affiliate, like any of these other channels do have this halo effect that you'll see on Amazon, right?
Yeah.
So your Amazon sales, your branded searches are going to go up, your Amazon sales are going to go up as a result, and it just sits there as that bottom of funnel demand capture
Mm.
mechanism, which is kind of how you should view it in the overall scheme of things. You shouldn't view it as the whole pie. You should just view it as like a very bottom of funnel demand capture mechanism for your business.
Yeah, I mean that for us, that's something that we were really shocked at. I mean, there's one thing that I want to come back to after this, and that's the affiliate side, because you touched on that a couple of times, and then I've never asked you to go a bit deeper in that, so I don't want to forget to come back around to that and chat about that a little bit deeper. But it was probably 12 months ago when we saw with our brand that every time we released a product, and it was the classic, like some of our some of our products were custom made. Even if we custom made them, like these were products that we were getting plastic molds made for. Like within 5 or 6 months, they were getting copied, and we were still making money, but it just meant that we had to be so competitive on the price. But then as soon as we transitioned away and we started to do the meta advertising, which is pretty much primarily what we're doing as the main external channel now. Yeah, we just saw the branded search go from a couple of hundred searches a month to 3,000-4,000 branded searches a month. And we were like, well, we're going to raise our prices, because all of these people, all of a sudden, instead of coming and looking for like generic products, they're looking for your products. They're looking specifically for our brand.
That's right.
And that's kind of meant that we can raise our prices, so the profit margins are higher. And it's almost like we used to view Meta and Facebook advertising as this like big scary thing. It was like, now we know we know how to sell on Amazon, but all the other stuff, like, that's for the future. That's when we like learn how to do e-commerce sort of like holistically. But once we started doing it, we were like, it's actually not that difficult. And then it's just made selling on Amazon actually easier because we have all of that external traffic. So how did you find getting stuck in with Facebook advertising and Meta advertising, like with making the creatives, all of the content? How was it going from just selling on Amazon into actually like getting stuck in with creating ads and content and stuff like that?
So one of the key I think like in all the businesses that you guys are involved with, probably it's making things look a ton better than your competition is like one of the keys. And so we had a bunch of assets like that, right? And I think that we had a really good design shop that makes everything look gorgeous, and we were able to take a bunch of assets from that and just kind of port it over to Meta, and that's kind of where it started. And I think that's probably the easiest place for anybody to start. It's like, and the same thing with Shopify, right? Like all that stuff was made already. We just kind of had to put it in a format that was usable on Shopify. So I think it was easy to get started on that, and then you kind of have to iterate a while and figure out like some ads that work, right? So you you might get lucky and get some out of the gate. They're like kind of okay, but it took us a while. I don't know, probably I want to say it probably took 2 or 3 months, and I probably spent I don't know, $5,000 on meta ads or something before it was like reliably profitable and doing like headed in the direction we wanted. Once we figured out kind of like what that seam was, then we were able to mine it pretty quickly further.
It's
And
just was that based on you testing angles, or was that based on Meta finding the right demographics to sell to?
I think, well, there's some of both. I think Meta is pretty good at really pretty quickly finding who your audience is. So I think that part of it, that's kind of Meta's genius, and they're very good at that part. But I think finding, like the angles and the how to present the product, like how to talk about it, like which of the pieces, and this is an ongoing process, but still figuring out like like, okay, if you have an ad and you say three things, you're essentially saying three different things in that ad. Which of those is actually the one that's resonating? So
Yeah.
like you can iterate again to pick those apart and try to figure out what is it exactly that's resonating with this audience. And I think we have like an idea and a concept of that works. And then I think figuring out more of those is how you scale. That's how you scale the
Yeah.
account, is to figuring out like other ways, or like maybe talking to a subset of people within your group, but it also could be just presenting your product or your offer in a different way. There's different like themes to the ad sets.
But I used to hear people talk about like we're we're trying to spend more on Meta, and I was always like, "What do you mean?" It's like just turn your budgets up. Like, how is it so hard to spend more? And what obviously they mean now, I've realized, is you need to unlock that spend by making great creative that speaks to new people, that unlocks new demographics and more of the kind of total addressable market. Whilst on Amazon, you can just crank up your spend and you can really just burn cash and throw it away,
Mhm.
bidding on terms that aren't relevant. With Meta, like, it's so intelligent now, and you can unlock, like, it's not going to burn your budgets in certain, like, CBO campaigns, not getting too technical, but like it's so intelligent where like you need to create those new angles. And I think what's amazing on Meta is Amazon's demand capture, isn't it? Like, you
Yes.
can't, like, you obviously, you can send external traffic, which you would do from Meta, but it's really demand capture. Whilst Meta and D2C is demand generation, and then you're capturing it. So like it's that different ball game. And the beautiful thing I've seen is, like, the more you scale Meta, like, you can really turn down your Amazon PPC. A lot of people, you can even get to the point where you turn off some campaigns because you're ranking so well organically. Because, to get a bit technical on the Amazon side, for people that watching this aren't aware, when you get branded search and people come to Amazon for your products and you get sales, they're going to see your listing, they're going to click, they're going to convert and buy. You get a boost on all your other keywords. So that can
Yeah.
be also the generic keywords that describe your product. You're getting a bump there as well. So you get this compounding effect of sales. And I used to always wonder that, you look at some listings on Amazon, they were doing so well. And I used to always think, like, they're just number one, or, like, top three. They're just doing great. And now I realized, no, they were like a brand off Amazon. They had these kind of other techniques, and that's how they were gaining such a lead. And obviously that's the point you clearly got to with your brand as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. And actually, I meant to go back and touch on something that Alex said earlier, because I've a couple of times I've had conversations, and this is like in the past week or two, where somebody would say, like, they have a brand new product and they say, I need to run some tests on Amazon so I can figure out what the price of this product should be. And the first thing I say is that, cut that out. Don't do that. You say, go on Meta and run it on Shopify and figure out what the price of the product ought to be there, because you can control the experience, right? Like, they see your ad, maybe along some competitor ads, but they see your ad basically, and then you take them to your landing page, and you can explain your value proposition, show your social proof, give them the whole landing page experience, give them the best thing that you can, and then you can run pricing tests there and see what people are actually willing to pay for the value that just you are delivering, right? And then, after that, once you know what that number is, then you can take that over to Amazon and run it for the same thing there, and try to, maybe your competitive tactics are a little bit different, but I think, it's really hard to, like, try to do price testing in an environment where you have like 20 other products that are maybe only 80% as good as yours, but you're then having to compete in a very crowded market where a bunch of people they may be undercutting you on price, maybe because their product's not nearly as good, but it's like a much noisier environment to try
Mm.
to test pricing and figure out you know what value am I actually delivering here, like what are the holes in that, like, how can I make the offer better, and then you know have to deal with all this competition as well. It makes it really really a noisy environment. So I think, like, it's better to go the opposite direction. Essentially, you can go both paths in parallel, but I think like there are things that you learn on like Meta and Shopify that are like cleaner learnings than what you'll get on Amazon trying to do the same thing.
We've seen some big differences as well, like because we like most of our products now are subscription based, and on Amazon it's probably like 10% of orders subscribe, but on Shopify it's like 30%. But that's because we can, we can just control how we present the offer to the customer so much that there's so much more flexibility. It's like we can, we can give free products, we can give deals. Obviously you can do the discount on Amazon, but it just doesn't seem to take as much. And then, and not just that, but now pretty much every time somebody buys, we get an email. So we're just stacking up this huge email list. And then like we did a new product launch, and we just sent out like 4,000 emails to like existing customers for this new product. So you've already got these people that understand your brand. They know you. I think like the way that I see it now is like Amazon is like if you're only selling on Amazon, you're trying to beat the Chinese at what they do best, and that's like that's essentially just like brute forcing their way into these niches through like the best pricing, and they get that because obviously they're probably getting much better prices from the source or the manufacturer. But what they're not very good at is the actual branding side. Like I do a lot of research into like supplement brands and consumable brands. It's pretty rare that I see a really good consumable or supplement brand that's got a good presence on Shopify, on TikTok and Amazon. And I click on the name and it's like Chinese. It's most of the time it's a US owned brand. And it's because I think having that holistic approach to being on TikTok, to being, on Shopify, and also just having Amazon as a sales channel, that just plays into our strength. That plays into our strength of understanding the customer a little bit more, being able to create this content that resonates with the customer. Because like now with AI on Amazon, the Chinese are catching up in terms of like, do you remember before AI and it used to just be like, you would look at some of the images and like the English was terrible. But I think that's becoming less common because now they can just go to ChatGPT and use ChatGPT to write their listings. So that sort of we used to have that advantage on Amazon a few years ago, but that's getting, that advantage is getting smaller and smaller on Amazon, where you're essentially just competing on price. But yeah, that's why everything that we're doing now is just seeing Amazon as the main sales channel, because people see the Shopify offer and they still want to go to Amazon and check because it's next day delivery or same day delivery. But yeah, that's made a huge difference for us.
You see people that are like one way or the other, like these huge, like, I guess we kind of used to be a bit like this, but like, you're like an FBA fanboy, like Stan as they called it, or you're like Shopify boys. And there was so like some Shopify people on Twitter, it's like, no, I never go on Amazon, never put my brand on there. And like, to me, I'm just like, that is so dumb, because you can see like if it's a great way to do product research. Anyone watching this, look at a great brand that's on Shopify, look for them on Amazon, see if they're selling there. A lot of them aren't. And then you'll see a load of copycat brands who honestly even look really similar. There was one that I think AG1, Athletic Greens, like huge company, famously weren't on Amazon. I don't know if they are now, but weren't on Amazon for years. And there was this other brand that looked just like them that was doing 100, 200, 300K a month, just literally eating their lunch. Like they were then generating demand. They were scooping it up on Amazon. So to me, if you view it as a sales channel, like for sure you should be on both. But I think an important point here is like, you haven't got to do everything in business at once. So like you mentioned there, Ben, that you saw success on TikTok, but you saw the bigger opportunity for you at the moment was Amazon, and it was scaling up Shopify, and that's what you focused on. You built the systems there. But sometimes in business, especially when you first start out, I think it's common to think, all right, we need to have our own social media account. We need to have email lists. We need to have a Facebook group. We need to have every single thing. And you think like you do everything kind of poorly, rather than let's focus on these 2 levers or 3 levers, do them well. They're the most important things. And you should choose to ignore things in a business. And you've done that. You've still got to your amazing 7-figure exit, but then the buyer, you can say to them, look, we haven't even done this yet. We haven't even explored mass retail yet. Yep. And that adds a lot of value, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an excellent point, right? You're only going to be good at certain things, right? And like everybody has their, and for different people it's different. Like I know some folks like in our group, they're just amazing at getting low cogs out of suppliers, right?
Yeah.
Like that's
Shout
We
that's
know
out
what
to
you're
Tom.
talking about.
Shout
you
him
know
out.
what I'm talking about, right? They're just gifted in that way. And that wasn't mine, honestly, and so you kind of have to
Yeah.
focus on where you're good and make money there, right? Like that's kind of like the real money engine of your business, and then expand as you're able, probably with the use of agencies and services, right? So like I mentioned, I think how the brand looks was key to the success, and that's shout out at Shane at We Go Beyond, right? Like he's an amazing designer. That they do amazing work. And then when I got to the point where I was like, I know we should be doing email, but I'm doing it like really poorly by myself, right? Hardly ever sending any emails, really. It's just like notifications for shipping. And so I said, we really need to be doing something on this front. And so went and found through referral Jordan at Open House Media. And he is like, he's the Shane of that domain, right? Like they can set you up with amazing looking email campaigns and help you with the strategy of it and everything. And then you kind of get like to where your business can support having these other functions that are done properly by folks who are specialists at them, right? As opposed to me doing everything kind of poorly. And also to your point, like if I had to let that go. It's not an easy thing to like see something work. I will say that, like see that take off in TikTok, and then later on have to say, you know what, we're not going to do that.
Mm.
Like that's actually a tough call to make because there's money there. But that is one that I had to make ultimately, and it's the right call. If I had spent a lot more of my time on trying to figure out TikTok, I probably in aggregate wouldn't have gotten to where I did, just because there's only so many hours in the day, right? Like you can't. It's really hard to be good at Amazon and Shopify and Meta and TikTok and you know a gazillion other things. So yeah,
Yeah.
you kind of have to pick and choose and just leverage what you actually know.
I mean, it's worth pointing out, right? You had zero e-com experience 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's correct. Ecom. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so like, I mean, this is one of the beauties of this model, isn't it? Like you can, I still think that it's like, start on Amazon, like you learn the ropes, right? You learn all the fundamentals so well.
Yeah.
Well, my wife's ringing me. You learn them really well. And as you scale up, like you had, like you said, you have the bankroll to get a bit of expertise. I think one thing you did, I mean, to be honest with you, you're like a shining example of Honest FBA, because I think you had Shane, you mentioned the designer, Joshua, who's PPC group wizard.
Yes.
Ben Leonard helped you with the exit at the end, another member of the group. And then I know like Evan, Tom Hartley, like these people in the group that helped you out. Like you, Max, you definitely squeezed all the juice out of being part of the community, right?
I definitely did. Yeah.
But yeah, but you all, I think from the beginning as well is like when you started to move across to Shopify, like we were asking you tons of questions there, and then you were sort of like bringing that into the group, into the group as well. So it's been awesome to kind of like see your journey, yeah, and everybody kind of, because like Tom said at the beginning, when you made that announcement that you'd had the exit, it was just like the whole crew was just like, and especially there was people joining the community that week or that maybe even that day, and the first thing they saw properly was just like, hey, I've just sold my brand, and they're just like, fuck, that must be amazing for people joining. But one thing that I did want to ask you, Ben, was when you came to sell, like how much did being multi-channel impact like the valuation and how easy it was to sell your brand, right? Because this is another thing that keeps kind of coming up with just Amazon only brands, is they're kind of difficult to sell if you're on one platform. How much did that help being across different channels?
Yeah. So I mean, it's hard to say exactly. I think that it definitely did help. I got two very different perspectives on that, like relatively early on, talking to like other folks, like brokers and so forth. And like one perspective I got that was just like it's all about it's all about the profit. Basically, you need to get your profit to a certain point before like larger buyers are going to be interested. And if that means you get it all from Amazon, then get it all from Amazon. Get it all where the easiest place is to get that profit. Get that profit. Doesn't matter. And then the other perspective was basically the opposite of that, which is no, you need to diversify because like there's this perception of risk, and yes, the top line numbers matter, but the diversification also matters. I went the latter route, be, you know, partially because I have trouble, like I like have a compulsion to diversify things. I just that's like it just feels safer to me. To have some diversification, even though there's that focus issue that we were talking about earlier. I think that you should have like more than one leg in your stool, basically for businesses. And so I went that route. I'm very glad I did go that route because for a lot of reasons. I mean, there's the diversification, but also going back to the problems that Amazon has, it like squeezing a large profit number out of that channel specifically is very hard, right? So it's like not just that it's demand capture, but also like every year fees go up, things get more complicated, it they can be capricious with compliance, and things that can knock your account offline for a little bit. And if something like that happens and you have Shopify and you're doing as much revenue on Shopify as you're doing on Amazon, then it's a way less of a big deal to like have your account go. I mean, it still sucks, but to have your account go down for 2 weeks or something, which is something I've seen happen many times, right? That's
Mm,
not. It doesn't. I wouldn't say it's like. I don't tell people to fear that, right? Like but it's definitely a possibility, right? Like that
mhm.
can happen. I've seen it happen numerous times. So it's out there as a threat. So it's better to have other channels that you can lean on and not go to zero when that happens. So like I think it's very important. I think it's also more fun, honestly. I think that you know like you say, like Amazon is a great place to capture like bottom of funnel traffic, but it's also a very red ocean, right? Like a lot of competition, very tough, and some operators are going to thrive in that more than others. I think if you're like um, if you're good at running super lean, and you're good at squeezing all the value out of the whole supply chain, and like you're good at stuff like that, then you might be able to go a lot farther on Amazon. That's not the part of the business that I find fun. I didn't
Mm.
want to spend a lot of time like squeezing the supply chain, although and I have a um, like one more shout out would be to move supply chain. So there's like you can uh, uh, get an agency that does that as well, basically fractional supply chain services. Super good idea to do that, I think, because having, especially in that part of your business, having professionals is pretty key. The I tell everybody, they say like what order should you hire things, and I say like start the business and then start looking for a logistics manager, right? Like that's the first thing, because even if you don't mind that, you don't want that to be your whole life probably, and
Yeah.
somebody else who's made that their career is just going to be way better at it. So yeah, so like there are certain things that'll make you good on Amazon versus Shopify, but I think that the D2C aspects of it, partially because they're newer to me, maybe, but I also just think it's more fun.
For sure.
I think that running meta ads and doing like conversion rate optimization of your site and like all those pieces, that is that's more of the marketing end of it, and that is my traditional wheelhouse. That's where I came from. That's what I'm good at. So like that's where I want to play, right? So the whole D2C aspect, quite aside from the diversification, just made the business a lot more fun for me to run.
I think like most people watching this, I think would agree. Like we all probably growing up were like, we want to launch our own brand. Like it's a cool concept.
Yeah.
You're not thinking, God, I'd love to build a supply chain and squeeze a bit of margin and then find a product. You're like, I want to build a cool brand, which is like marketing, basically. That is what we all like. We're all probably a bit more creative minded. And then, yeah, like you said, you can find the expertise to help you. I mean, you mentioned you were quite lean, right? So what was the team structure at the end to kind of, yeah, as of now, like what did it end with?
So yeah, so I mean, like basically I always ran it the same way, which was me plus contractors and agencies. So from the start to the end, I never had any like real full-time employees or anything, or even real part-time employees. I was always the only actual employee of the business, and I would just go out and find the folks that I needed to run it. So there are a bunch of um, like point solutions, I guess you'd say, around that. So like I got a bunch of stuff from Upwork, right? So there's if you just need to go and figure out if there's a patent on this, that's a good thing for Upwork. Or you need a compliance report, or you need somebody to fix this on your Shopify site, some Shopify dev. So there's a bunch of little stuff like that that's great for Upwork. And then there are places where that aren't really that well defined on a project basis, and you say, my business needs this component, right? So you like another early on one would be bookkeeping. I waited way too long to bring bookkeepers on, and that's another one that should be pretty early. So like bookkeeping, logistics, like I said, email, graphic design, those are like larger components that are pretty important. So those I would go out and get agencies for. And then later on, like, because I came from an ads background for a long time, I ran all the Amazon ads myself. And then, when it started getting bigger, I had a consultant for a little while. And I was like, well, they're kind of doing what I was doing. But that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody who's way better than me at this. And, that's when I went out and got Joshua, and he's like way better than anybody I know at that. So yeah.
Yeah.
Joshua's way better than anyone at PPC.
Yeah.
I can, anyone watching this, like, there's an interview with Joshua on this channel. I highly recommend you go and watch it. Joshua actually is a big time Amazon seller himself, has had an exit, and he runs a shit hot agency. Couldn't recommend him. He's integral part of Honest FBA as well. So yeah, can't speak highly enough of him. He manages our PPC as well, and I know he had some great conversations with you, I believe, in terms of like he's good because he's not going to sugarcoat stuff. He's just like, right, this is the situation.
Yes.
If you don't do this, you're fucked. But
Yeah,
you do this,
exactly.
you're not fucked.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, he's great for that. And yeah, and he's, like I think he's more of like a strategic growth partner.
Yeah.
Like he runs my Amazon ads. That's what he does an absolute killer job at that. Way better than I would do myself. And I tell people, like, I've worked in the agency world. I've engaged many agencies for working with ads specifically, and or like contractors and agencies probably. But like he's probably the only one where I say, like, if I walked away for 6 months, I would come back to a situation that is better than I left it. Like
Yeah.
he's just going to run it better than I would.
Yeah.
And that's all there is to it. So like if you walk away from your business for 6 months, you shouldn't expect to come back to anything, because well, we need to talk about. But like, on that part of it, like, yeah, he's doing it better than I would do it.
Yeah. I think a question I actually posted in our Discord, and I was saying about any kind of main questions for yourself, and one that came in was like what you would do if you started again. And I remember you posted actually on the day you sold, you posted like a Venn diagram I think where you start. It was, hopefully we can pop it up on screen, but it was clearly differentiated product, margin profile, and marketing skills, wasn't it? I think they were the three, right? And there was like a crossover. Like with your head on now, like what I mean, you picked almost like a perfect niche to begin with. So I guess maybe you could just say the same thing again. But where do you think you would start now in terms of if you were to start again?
Yeah, so like I'd have like the element that I added earlier, that so the piece that was missing from that graph. What I was trying to get, so the question there was around like, hey, I'm just starting out. Like, what's your advice to me? And so I said, well, first of all, like, here's this Venn diagram, right? Like, cleanly differentiated product, like insane margins and incredible marketing skills, right? Like, and you don't have to be in the dead center of that to win. But if you're in the white space outside the circles, you're really going to struggle. So like you have to be somewhere in there. The piece that I left out of that was very impactful to my business is what I mentioned early on, which is the trend of the overall industry, right? So you can, if you're somewhere in those circles, but you're just like way in one area and you have no abilities in the other areas, you might still win big if that whole thing is sitting inside a market that's exploding. That's that's the other factor that is not in there, but is really, really impactful.
Yeah. I mean, even if like if the niche that you're in is growing 40, 50, 60% every year, like you could kind of just stay the same and you just ride that tailwind, right? Of and that's definitely one thing that we've for sure learned as well, and really, really trying to push within the community is like it's an absolute essential that you at least see some year-on-year growth, and you're not seeing like, because if you're some people have sent us products that they want us to take a look at, and they're actually just declining year-on-year 20%, like the demand. So like you're just fighting an uphill battle there, aren't you? So super important.
Time in the market as well. Like Shopify, like what the average consumer in the US, like the trend line of e-commerce is back to where it back on track that it was prior to COVID. Obviously, there's this huge spike in COVID that threw it off, like the trend that it was growing at in terms of like e-commerce adoption over going to physical retail. But we're back above. I think it's back above where it even got to in COVID now. And like I think I saw the data, but by like 2030, like it's an incredible level. So like it's almost that like time in the market play rather than who's that investor that said that? Whatever the phrase is, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Isn't that one of them, Buffett or one of them, wasn't it?
One of the old ones. But just being in the game, right? Being in
timing game, the market is time in the market, right?
Yes, better than timing the market. Yeah, exactly. So like being in the game, and like I said, that's gonna rising tide raises all ships. Yes, I nailed one phrase finally.
You got one in there, yeah.
I want to circle back to Alex. You said a comment earlier. You said you don't want to forget the affiliate angle.
Yeah. Perhaps that's a good place for us to wrap it. So Ben don't regret joining us. Now he's had this exit. His time's even more valuable than it was before. I wanted, on the affiliate side, Ben. You don't mean like TikTok Shop affiliates, right? You mean. Or do you? You mean you've done some other affiliate stuff, haven't you?
So I there are different types, right? So I did try the TikTok Shops affiliates. I think that program is really pretty slick, and it's probably what all the other platforms are going to look like in some way in the future, right? I think that's coming to all the major platforms. But when I say like I was doing well with affiliate, I mean like your normal like affiliate, people referring someone to your Shopify site. So the possibilities there are broader than they are on TikTok. So on TikTok, that basically always means that somebody's good at making a video, and they push somebody to a call to action, and that's it. Like in affiliate, when you in Shopify, that could mean a variety of things, right? It could mean people like have a review channel, or they have a blog, or have some kind of audience in your niche or something like that, right? So there are more varied opportunities for how they send the traffic in, which means you have to scrutinize it a little bit more. With TikTok affiliate, it's really just like, how can I get more of these? That's kind of the whole consideration set. Whereas on if you run affiliate to your own site, you kind of have to be you have to scrutinize it a little bit more, because there people can run scams, and like, you just have to look at what's going on there. But also it allows you to like connect with other people who are in your niche, who might have their own audience, and couldn't bring immediate value to you, like, like, it goes both ways, with that affiliate program. So yeah, we've done a wide variety of things on that front. I will say that, like most things, it pans out to like an 80-20 rule, right? So, like, you're going to have a relatively small set of affiliates that drive a lot, and then a bunch of people that don't do much at all. So, like, that's just the nature of how that is.
You had last thing I say is you had a bit of a. Did you have like a bit of a whale come in? You had like a pro. Was it a pro athlete that came into you? You got approached, right? It wasn't you headhunting people. You actually had a few inbound.
Yeah. So I mean, those are right on the site there. We've had folks come to us and say, hey, this is interesting to me, or I like your product, and form a relationship, and go from there. So I think that's another, like, side benefit of, like, I think in this case it's really just like organic socials. So we did go out, and so I mean, some people make that their whole business, and that's a viable strategy. Also, not something that I did. We kind of, like, left it alone, except to we put out some, like, a base layer of content out there on all the different platforms, and I don't want it to look like we're not there, or we don't care, but we haven't, like, pushed that super hard. But I think that is basically how we were able to form all these different relationships. It's just kind of like being out there, and having a good product.
For sure. I think that if someone's got an audience and they approach you, like, I'm actually thinking now about our best kind of brand ambassadors / like content creators that we work with. I think nearly all of them approached us, and then like it's so much easier to build a relationship. Like, I've said this in previous videos, but like, we'll get on calls with them and actually become kind of friendly with them, and they really feel part of the brand, and they're not just going to then post when they're like paid to do so. They'll actually just be an ambassador, and they're going to keep promoting your products, which obviously pays off massively.
Absolutely.
Look, I've got to ask the final question we'll ask, because then everyone's wondering what's next. What's next once you had the big 7-figure exit? Are you just going to chill for the next 10 years, or what are you going to do?
If I did that at my age, I'd have to retire. No, I think that like, I do plan to, like, once things settle down a little bit, like, take a little bit of time. We'll probably do some traveling this summer with my kids and so forth. But really, professionally, what's next is, I want to stay in ecom. I want to, like, I kind of feel like I know where a lot of the pain points are now, and I think I could help to solve some of those. So I want to do something in the industry, but more on the, like, software and services side. So my only hard rule about my next business is no physical inventory. Just because, like, I really want to work on the marketing side and solving some of the problems, but I really don't want to handle the inventory and have the problems related to that. So that's just like an evolution of me and what I find fun. And so, like, I made some rules for myself about what I'll do next, and I'll be, like, selling the picks and shovels and not mining the gold. So
awesome. We'll use a tool, I'm sure. So let us know. You come on for round 3 when you sell the tool for $100 million.
And if you need a YouTube channel to promote it,
yeah.
Don't think I won't ask, because I will.
Awesome. Well, Ben, look, mate, congrats again. Like, genuinely, like, it was an amazing moment, and we're super super happy for you and like incredibly proud that we got to play a small part in it. So yeah,
Yeah, well, and you definitely did. Like I didn't say that, but like, you know, I joined this community to backfill my knowledge of econ because I didn't know anything about it, right? And that was well done, right? Like you guys did backfill on my knowledge, and you know, to a point where I was able to, you know, with myself and some contractors and agencies, grow it to you know, a nice exit. So you know, owe you guys a debt of gratitude as well.
Awesome, man.
Awesome.
Appreciate it. Cool. All right, Ben. We'll see you soon.
All right.
Cheers.
Thanks, man.
Thanks a lot, Ben.